Hi there, this is Dr. Everybody. Going to take a look at Project 5. And when you take a look at the document, there's really just a few things to focus on. So we have the main part of our program. What does it do? It reads it a file, calls a read craters uh, function, creates a crater list, takes that list, gets the eligible craters out of that being the eligible crater list, and then we write those to a file. And one of the neat things about this is that by looking at this main program, we can see the major parts of what we have to do. So let's start with taking a look at uh, the file. And what I always like to do is take a look at the file itself. So let's open the file. I gave you one called small.txt. And what's in it? Well, for lines in my file, I have a typo there for a line in file pointer, print line. And we see all this stuff that comes out. There's actually 25 pieces of information in there. And if you look at it, you will see that it's really the information at the beginning of each of these lines that we're interested in. Now, each line is longer than it will just print out on. It expands across multiple lines in my shell here. And we can examine the headers, which are quite messy. But if you look down here, you see that you get a number, a name, a latitude, a longitude, and D for diameter. And that's at the beginning of the line. So that's the part that we're interested in. So let me close my file so we can take a look at it again. And let's open it up. Open my file. And this time, so I'm interested in maybe the first 5 items out of there or something like that. So we might be tempted to take my line and slice out, say, the first 5 items and print those. See what's going on. I've got my parentheses. Here we go. And I see that, oh, my first 5 things are a couple of characters, a tab, and a couple more characters. Not very interesting. So what did I miss out on? Well, first of all, I've got to close my file again. Let's open it up. And now, what did I miss? Well, there are really 2 main things that you'll want to focus on when you have lists. The first thing is that almost all the time we will want to split lines into lists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this my line list, which is my line with a split. So that splits it on white space. Instead of the line, let's look at the line list and the first 5 items in there. And now we come up with something that looks a lot more like what we're after. And if you look at the top part here, look at that. So I got a few lines of headers, and then I've got my number, my name, my latitude, my longitude, and my diameter. And notice, what is my line list? Well, it is a slice of the first things in each line as a list. And so each one of these has their number, has their name, has their latitude, their longitude, and their diameter. So the first thing that you focus on is this split. Okay, so that's a critical line there. We took the line, I was going through this one line at a time, and I split it to create a list. And then in this case, I took a slice at the beginning of my list. And that's what I'm looking at. So this split is something you're going to use all the time. The other thing that you use all the time is that it would be nice to collect everything that I just got into a list. So I have all these lists. Now, and what this collection is like is it's things that we've done before. So for example, when we wanted to count things, right, we would start with count equal to 0, and then we'd have a loop of some sort of for a while, and we'd have something like count plus equals 1. Right? Started with 0, and we keep adding, we loop around and keep adding on to it. Another thing that we did is we might start with some kind of a string, and it would start with empty stuff in it, and again we'd loop, and in this loop we might take my string and add characters into it. Right, so we start with something empty, we keep adding characters on it, or we start with a counter at 0 and keep adding 1 onto it. With lists, what we find ourselves doing all the time is start with an empty list, I'll call it my collect list, and we start with it being empty, square brackets for a list, and then I'll loop, and what I will do is I will take my collect list and I will append onto it some, I'll call it a T that I'm appending on here. So in this case, I start with an empty list, and then I will, rather than add plus equals 1 or plus equals a character, I'm going to append things onto this list. What does that look like? Well, let's go back here. I will close my file, reopen it, and take a look. Oops. Now, let's take something like my collect list, and I'll make it empty. And now, every time through this loop, rather than do printing, instead of the print, let's do collect list dot append that slice and see what happens. And it looks like nothing happened, but let's take a look at the collect list, and that is a bunch of lists, and we can see them here. Start down at the bottom, you know, like so. Here's the list from 24. It starts with a square bracket. It's got its number, its name, its lat, its long, its diameter, and there's the end of the list. So we have a list of lists. Notice there at the end. All right, so we got the square bracket. That's the list of lists. That's the collect list, and you'll see that again at the beginning here. So we have a bunch of lists, and now the first couple of ones we're not very interested in because they are some of the header stuff. And guess what? We could slice them away, so we don't have to deal with it. A much nicer way to look at these is just to print each item in the list. Go through the collection. We use for, walks right through the collection, and then we print them one at a time. And now I get to see all the different stuff in my list. So there's that. That's what we end up doing. We split stuff. We append stuff. That's a key thing that you do. Now, if we go back and look at the program, we're doing these functions. Oops, I better close this. And I can now take a look at those functions because I have already started up my my program. I can say I've got my functions loaded in. Creator list equals read creators, and I have to give it a file name. Notice I have a doc string there, so I can see it says open the file name, return a list of creators as tuples. Okay, so let's give it my small.txt. That goes into my function. What comes back? Well, what's returned from the function is my creator list, which looks like that. And if I want to have an easier way for T in my creator list, we'll just print each T. Now it comes out a bit easier to read. And there's all the things in my creator. So I can work with this function and it reads through the file, splits the lines, extracts the information that we're interested in, builds a list. So like my collect list returns that, and that's what I get back from it. And then there's another function. So we pass that list. And we send that to the get eligible creator list. Pass my list to that, and it goes through and says, oh, if the diameter is greater than 60, I think it is, and the longitude is less than 35, then I'll add it to my list. Again, there we go. We're building a list again. And so when that comes back, again, we see we have a list of craters, and again, if I want to take a look at them a little cleaner, one at a time on each line. Now that's the set of craters that have that characteristic, and then I would need to write them into a file and format and so on. And that's the basic parts of the code. But remember, the key thing here, the key things are I create my lines and then I split into lists. Right, that's a key function, the key method used, and then I do some kind of a collection that starts out as empty, and then I use the dot append to that to build up. Start with an empty list, build up a list, say with certain characteristics. That's those are the two things to focus on, as well as the functions and good stuff like that. So I think I will stop there.